Okay, I will continue with my session, and uh, since there is no break, I will continue. I have not prepared any PowerPoint presentation. I will speak uh, some of the important issues and important issues about important rules, regulations about biodiversity conservation. And you may be having basic inputs at your school level, and at your graduation level you must have studied about biodiversity. It is biodiversity means biological diversity. Biodiversity is a shortcut from the name biodiversity. Biological diversity is the full name. Biological diversity means biological resources, as you know, it is the species and uh, diversity, species diversity especially, and it includes the variety of life forms. A variety of life forms that constitute the biological diversity. It includes plants, animals, microorganisms, all life forms, and their variety constitutes the biological diversity. Biological diversity, and this, as per international conventions, this biological diversity um, is defined at three levels. One is at species level. Species, as you know, as you are human being species name, you will tell Homo sapiens sapiens, and Homo is the genus, and sapiens is the species, and another species sapiens is the race, and it is a subspecies, and it includes and many races also. And species diversity includes all life forms, all species. It shows the individual species name, and one species doesn't resemble other species. Like human Homo sapiens doesn't resemble so many species. Many Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, other species they have become extinct. But Homo is the genus, and there are many races like Negrito race, and this other races like Australoid race, and Mongoloid race. All these are the races, and at genetic level, species level, and at diversity, we have to conserve species level. We have to conserve individual species, and at the race also, there are many races also there, and they are called in plants. For example, there are many varieties of plants are there, and within the rice there are many varieties are there. Within the wheat there are many varieties are there. They are called varieties. That is genetic diversity they call. Species level diversity one level, genetic diversity another level, and another third level is the ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity means there are many ecological systems. Ecological, this marine ecosystems, forest ecosystems, wetland ecosystems, grassland ecosystems, desert ecosystems, and these constitute the biomes. They are also the third level of diversity, is that ecological system level diversity. And these three levels of diversity we need to: genetic level, species level, and ecosystem level diversity we need to conserve. These three levels of diversity we need to conserve, and for this conservation, and it is binding on all. It is not our only at local level, it is not possible. We have to conserve at global level also, not at individual local level also it is essential, as well as the global level also it is essential. And if we think by whole earth as a one ecosystem, we have to conserve as the whole unit too. And their species animals, they don't have any boundary. We have political boundaries, but animals, they don't have political boundaries. Even the turtles from Australia, they migrate to Indian coastal areas for this nesting, uh, and the birds from Siberia, they come to India for nesting. Then there is no boundary, no political boundary will not matter with them. Then there is a need to conserve at the global level as well as at the local level also. For this reason only, this international attention has been attracted. For since 1948 onwards, CITES has been convened. CITES means Conventional International Trade in Endangered Species, and they are working on conservation of nature and endangered species. And India is also a signatory, and under its uh, this the IUCN is also working, International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, and then these are the international convention. Ramsar's convention was held. Ramsar convention, it is wetlands basically for conserving wetlands. CITES is this is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. They are maintaining red data list, and IUCN is also International Union for Conservation of Nature. IUCN is since 1948 they are working on it, and since 1975 onwards this CITES is also working, and Ramsar Convention also being signed by India and many other countries. Since 1975 onwards they are functioning. These treaties are being, and they are frequently they are conducting conference of parties also. They are making decisions and they are making strategies for conservation of biodiversity and nature, and uh, this heritage also, heritage, natural heritage. India is the mega biodiversity country in the world. It is one of the mega biodiversity countries in the world, and it is having many um, world heritage nature centers also. World heritage, especially this many seven of our nature biodiversity rich areas. They are recognized by World Heritage Center at UNESCO, Switzerland. They are recognized our especially this Himalayan Biosphere Reserve in Himachal Pradesh, Manas Tiger Reserve, Kaziranga Tiger Reserve in the Kaziranga National Park, Manas National Park in Assam, and another one, it is World Heritage Site, and Sundarban National Park, and Western Ghats. All these are biodiversity rich areas. They are recognized by World Heritage Sites because they are having unique species diversity, endemic species, a lot of that is important. And many endemic species are there, especially in Northeast and Himalayas, Western Ghats. They are rich in biodiversity. Many endemic species not yet been discovered in many species also. They are, and we need to conserve them and in an ecosystem. And not only that, wetlands are also very important to biodiversity hotspots. They are the biodiversity hotspots means they are rich in biodiversity, and then there is a need to conserve them. Otherwise, they will become extinct because of these biotic pressures and other, and marine ecosystems. This in Tamil Nadu, this uh, Gulf of Mannar, such marine ecosystems have to be preserved. Uh, for this reason only, Ramsar Convention is also made, and many of our Indian wetlands, Chilka Lake, Pulicat Lake, they are also Ramsar sites, and we will get funds from international organizations like for conserving nature and natural resources, and this preserving species, and this uh, biodiversity conservation. Uh, these are the international level conventions and treaties. And then there is was a important convention was held at 1992, as you know. This their Earth Summit was held. That is called UNCED, United Nations Convention of Environment and Development. Under this, three important treaties were also signed, and one is UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That is for combating this global warming. That UNFCCC is basically. But for conserving biodiversity, UNCBD was made, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity. UNCBD was also signed in around 1994 onwards. It has become effective. This UNCBD, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, has become effective since 1994. 1992 it was signed, but 90 and India also signed in 1993, and it became effective from UNCPD became effective from 1994 onwards. India is a signatory. More than I think 197 countries have they have ratified, signed, and ratified it, except USA. I think USA has not ratified it, and Vatican City also not ratified it. Other countries, other 190 out of 190 nine countries, 197 countries, they have adopted it, and they are implementing it. This decisions of the UNCBD, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, and another one, the UNFCCC one treaty and UNCBD one treaty, and another treaty was also signed at Earth Summit. That is UNCCD, United Nations Convention for Combating Desertification. That treaty was also signed. But today's topic is conservation of biological diversity. We will talk about UNCBD only, and there are many decisions were taken for conserving biodiversity at global level as well as national level and subnational level. There are many in consonance with CBD, and we have to all parties. They are called parties. All signatories. They are all countries. They are the parties only. They are the governing body. They they have to conserve it as per the international obligations. They have to conserve it, and many local laws also being made. And before that, in continuation of this UNCBD, and for implementing, and in 2000 also one protocol was made, Cartagena protocol they call, Cartagena protocol for biosafety, Cartagena protocol for biosafety, for regulating the transboundary movement of genetically modified species. They are also called living modified organisms, because at that time there were many uh, using genetic recombination or recombinant DNA technology. Many plant varieties are being modified and they are being transported, like BT cotton and other BT corn, BT maize, and other BT brinjal. They were produced and they are being many Monsanto seed companies like Monsanto, they were supplying seeds, and many plant varieties are being. And at that time, it was felt necessary to protect by biodiversity, and they have thought that there is a threat from genetically modified organisms to the biodiversity, and indiscriminate this transboundary movement of genetically modified organisms may pose a threat to biological diversity. With that intention, they have made this Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. Under this, there were many restrictions, regulations were imposed on on other nations. If one nation want to transfer to other nation, they have to take permission, and there was a clearing house was also created, and this secretariat, this CBD secretariat is located at Montreal, at Canada, and they will regulate under this Cartagena protocol also made. Cartagena is a place in USA, but that COP meeting was supposed to be held at Cartagena, but it was held at Montreal only, Canada, at CBD site. Under this the Cartagena protocol on biosafety was made. Under this, there were regulations were imposed for transboundary movement of genetically modified organisms, because as you know the technique, in plants also you see galls, this which bacteria causes agrobacterium tumefaciens. That bacteria, using that bacteria, they transfer genes of other microorganisms, like genes. BT Bacillus thuringiensis is a, that is a one of the bacteria causes some secret some proteins. When insects eat that those proteins, they will die, and those genes were introduced into plants by using this agrobacterium tumefaciens, and they have genetically modified this BT cotton and other BT brinjal, BT corn, for uh, providing disease insect pest resistance to plants. And they were selling those seeds and plant varieties, plant genetically modified plant uh, material, they were transferring. But with that, after the passing of Cartagena protocol, and there was a regulation imposed on other nations also. Apart from Cartagena protocol on biosafety, and in 2010 also, we have made this Nagoya protocol. Nagoya is in Japan, and Nagoya protocol, it is basically for access and benefit sharing of biological resources. But actually, three main aims of this Convention on Biological Diversity is conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of biological resources, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from commercial utilization of biological resources. These three were the main aims, goals of the CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity. And one of the goals is access to genetic resources and fair and equitable sharing of uh, benefits of commercial utilization of biological resources. And for access and benefit sharing, ABS they call, this Nagoya protocol was made at Japan in 2010 in COP 10 meeting, that conference of parties 10th meeting was held in 2010 in Nagoya in Japan. Under this access and benefit sharing rules and regulations were made, because many indigenous tribals are affected by exploitation of biological resources from various nations. Many pharmaceutical products agriculture product commodities, all are produced from biological resources only. Many even still now also synthetic drugs are made, but many but their precursors are from biological resources only. Many compounds are isolated from plant materials, and their chemical composition is deciphered, and the drugs are made, and many pharmaceutical formulations are made using the biological compounds. Many biological compounds are isolated, and they are synthesized commercially, and they are sold. The company who is making and selling these commercial products, they are getting benefits. But the indigenous tribals, indigenous people, local people are also using these biological resources since time immemorial, but they will not get anything. With that intention only, this Nagoya Protocol was made to protect the interests of the indigenous tribals and local people, and traditional knowledge systems have to be protected. Traditional knowledge systems in India is rich in traditional knowledge systems. Like we were using tulasi, aldi, and other natural products in pharmaceutical formulations, and local Ayurvedic medicines, local Unani medicines, local naturopathy medicines, all these. And apart from that, local tribals were also using these indigenous traditional systems, and with and this indigenous knowledge has to be protected. This for that reason, this Nagoya Protocol, it was made to uh, give access to genetic resources. There will be the access should not be denied. Access should be given, but the benefits should be shared between with the local people. That is the idea of Nagoya Protocol. And various rules and regulations, various clearing houses were also made. And this is the Nagoya Protocol at COP 10 in Japan was held. And in continuation of that, some Aichi targets were also fixed. And another target of CBD is to conservation and sustainable use of biological resources. For conservation and sustainable use of biological resources, these Aichi targets were also made. There are 5 goals and 20 targets were fixed, and all these things will be explained by Dr. Bharati Patel. She will explain later. I will not tell about this Aichi targets. Will not talk, but uh, this Nagoya Protocol uh, was held at COP 10, but in COP 11 was held in Hyderabad also at that time. COP 11 and was held in Hyderabad in 2012. Conference of Parties to CBD was held in 2011 in 2012 in Hyderabad. In that, India also ratified this Nagoya Protocol, and then we are also obliged to follow the Nagoya Protocol negotiations. And in our institute also, the beginning is from that conference only. When in 2012 this COP 11 meeting was held in Hyderabad, convention COP 11 meeting to CBD was held in Hyderabad, and at that time it was decided. Before 2012, our institute was a forest research center only. After CBD, after COP 11 meeting at Hyderabad, our institute, our center has been converted into Institute of Forest Biodiversity to commemorate that COP 11 meeting at Hyderabad in 2012. Uh, and in 2012, at COP 11 meeting, India also uh, this made became a party to this Nagoya Protocol. And these are the basic about the international developments about biological conservation. But in India also there were many laws have been made, many developments have come for conservation of biodiversity. And in 2002 we have made Biological Diversity Act. Biodiversity Act was made, and in 2002, and 2004 biological diversity rules were also made in India. These are the Indian laws um, in consonance with international agreements, and local laws are also necessary, not only for international agreements, for local level implementation. Local laws also, it was felt local laws also should be made. And and before that, for protecting farmers rights and plant varieties, 2011 Protection of Plant Varieties Act and Farmers' Right Acts were also made in 2001. Under this, many plant varieties can be registered and protected by the breeders and developers and farmers, because many farmers they breed and they conserve many plant varieties and animal varieties, because our Ongol bull is exported to Brazil, and our plant and animal varieties have to be protected. Those who are those who are importing, they have to pay royalty to local people. Any local genetic uh, material or any local variety of plant or animal species, when they are exported to other countries, there should be some body to govern these things. And with that intention, this Biological Diversity Act 2002 was made. Under this, National Biodiversity Authority was created. NBA, now it is functioning at Chennai. NBA, National Biodiversity Authority, has been made under the provisions of Biodiversity Act 2002. NBA headquarters is at Chennai. Any international organization, any other country, they want to import our biological material, any biological resource, plant material or any animal resource or any microorganism, they need to take permission from National Biodiversity Authority. Any pharmaceutical company, any multinational company, if they want to use our local, because India is a rich, very rich in biodiversity, whether plant or animal or any other species, they are very rich. And there are around 10% of the species are in India only. Out of uh, India is such a rich biodiversity, rich in not only in forest diversity, marine diversity. This agriculture biodiversity is also very rich in India. Not only that, animal varieties, plant varieties, very rich, and these resources have to be conserved and protected, because nowadays not many local varieties of plant and agriculture varieties are being not being cultivated, and they are becoming extinct. If you go to remote areas in this tribal areas in Chhattisgarh or Orissa, you will find many local varieties of rice species. Nowadays, they are promoting this black rice, such things, and some black fowls. Um, they are indigenous. They are endemic. Such species have to be conserved, and many plant varieties. They are pharmaceutical, not only international level, but local pharmaceutical companies. They are using the traditional knowledge and uh, this in pharmaceutical formulations, and these local people, they are not getting anything. And with this intention, under the provisions of Biological Diversity Act, National Biodiversity Authority has been made for suggesting the government of India and for guiding the state biodiversity boards and for making rules and regulations for use of biological diversity, for access and benefit sharing. All these issues will be decided by the National Biodiversity Authority. And not only that, in under Biodiversity Act, the rules are very strict, and some of the provisions are non-bailable, cognizable offences. If somebody commits a crime under the Biodiversity Act, if they are booked, it is a non-bailable offence. They will not get bail, and the rules are also very strict. But in 2021, they want to implement this Biodiversity Act also to make liberalize, and all even local pharmaceutical companies also every time they need to go to state biodiversity board for permission for use of biological resources, like Patanjali. They also need to obtain permission from state biodiversity boards. Apart from National Biodiversity Authority, and under the provisions of this uh, Biodiversity Act, state biodiversity boards are also created at national level. National Biodiversity Authority, for every state will have a one state level biodiversity board, and all these pharmaceutical companies for state level, the state biodiversity boards, they manage for use of biological resources and access and benefit sharing. And pharmaceutical companies need to obtain for permission from state biodiversity boards. And any even though this forest department is the enforcing agency for the forest areas, but state biodiversity boards, they will decide. Sometimes it will be referred to NBA or state biodiversity boards. Any issue comes related to access and benefit sharing of biological resources. It will be there. And NBA also, it is an autonomous authority, statutory authority. It is not a department. It is an advisory body like thing. It is. It will have one chairman and some other members, executive members from various ministries, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Tribal Affairs, Ministry of Ocean Development. Like that, some 8 or 10 departments they have ex officio members. All some ministries they have members, because biodiversity is not only for agriculture biodiversity, animal husbandry biodiversity, the marine biodiversity, forest biodiversity, but the nodal department is the Ministry of Environment and Forest only. NBA works under Ministry of Environment and Forest, and it has one chairman and one member secretary is an IFS officer. But but it will draws officers from all ex officio members from all other ministries, and they regularly meet and decide. And they also fund. NBA will get a lot of funds also. They NBA funds for conservation. They will fund state biodiversity boards as well as from NGOs and some other agencies for conservation and preservation of biological diversity, the NBA. And they conduct trainings meetings regularly, and they devise rules regulations. And when any issue comes, they will decide. The decision of the NBA will be final. Forest departments also sometimes refer to NBA for advice. And NBA, okay. And this apart from NBA, this similar structure will be maintained by state biodiversity boards also. State biodiversity boards will also have one chairman, and they will have members from other departments also: agriculture, horticulture, animal husbandry, and science and technology, and other departments. They will have members, and the chairman is nominated by uh, government, state government only, not from central government. But who is the chairman of this Telangana State Biodiversity Board? I think not yet appointed. Not yet appointed. Okay. But member secretary will be there. One IAS officer will be there. He will deal. If chairman is not there, member secretary will he will deal all the matters of the state biodiversity board. He will decide. And if chairman is not there, member secretary will decide. And the state biodiversity boards are supposed to take about the all biodiversity issues. Apart from NBA and state biodiversity boards, the Biodiversity Act also mentions about formation of local level biodiversity management committees. At village level also there will be biological diversity management committees. They are called BMCs. Every village level there will be one biodiversity management committee, and the committee role is to document, and they have to maintain the biological diversity of their village, whether plant variety, animal variety, all species diversity in their village has to be maintained by the this village level biodiversity management committee in the form of people's biodiversity register. BMCs maintain people biodiversity registers as per the provisions of Biodiversity Act. And I am not talking how this people's biodiversity registers are prepared, and detailed presentation will be given by Manikanta Reddy. He will give how, because we are preparing PBRs for various villages in Andhra Pradesh. We have prepared many villages, people's biodiversity registers, and we have assisted in formation of biodiversity management committees in Andhra Pradesh, and they are functioning successfully as under the guidance of the State Biodiversity Board of Andhra Pradesh. And Telangana also. If we have conducted some trainings to BMC committees for preparation of biodiversity, people's biodiversity registers, and detailed presentation will be given by Manikanta Reddy for preparation of people's biodiversity registers. And these are the basic concepts of this Biological Diversity Act 2002. And various rules and regulations have been made in biodiversity rules have been made in 2004. And this act is the basic rule law, but for functioning these rules are followed. These biodiversity rules have to be followed by all the departments, agencies, and NBA and SBBs also, and BMCs also. They have to follow the rules. Under the rules only, this BMCC will also function, biodiversity management committees at village level. And this is basic thing about this Biodiversity Act. And apart from that, we have this Wildlife Protection Act also. Many rare, endangered, and threatened species they are prohibited from trade, and we have prescribed from trade is also prohibited for or the collection and sale and killing of and any animal species, protected species, and collection of any plant material are prohibited under the Wildlife Protection Act. It is not allowed. But under the Biodiversity Act also, all plant species are not prohibited from collection, because local healers, local this Ayurvedic healers and local hakims and local naturopathy healers, wives, local wives, they are exempted from this provisions of the Biodiversity Act, and the farmers' rights will be protected for anyway. They are the but what is the advantage of maintaining this people's biodiversity register? If they maintain, if some resource is used by some pharmaceutical company, and this local village panchayat, they will get some royalty from that to pharmaceutical company. This is the legal provision made in the Biodiversity Act, and this we need to follow any pharmaceutical company, and first they have to take permission from SBB, and they have to pay royalty for collection of this, use of collection and use of this any plant material or any other genetic material. They have to pay royalty to wherever local indigenous people do. If their traditional knowledge is used by some pharmaceutical company or some other company, they need to pay royalty to those local communities. In recently in Karnool area, some local this sharbat they make from some plant material, and that some company they have commercially used, and they have paid royalty to that local people. Many such incidents are there. Many even from seed companies, they use the local seed varieties and they market it. But local people, those who are traditionally maintaining those plant species, and they have to be given some, get some royalty from that when they are used on commercial scale by some seed company. The local people also should get. And when they are genetically modified also, they can modify genetically, and for that also they need to give some royalty to the local indigenous people. And this is basic about the Biodiversity Act. Under this, this PPRs and other things have been made. uh, Apart from this biological diversity conservation, India has taking many important conservation measures. Like, as you know, there are in situ conservation, ex situ conservation, and in situ conservation is within the forest areas, and that is maintained for sustainable management in forest areas. And ex situ conservation is some rare, endangered, threatened species. They will be conserved in artificially outside the forest areas. That is ex situ conservation, using modern techniques, nursery techniques, or uh, tree breeding techniques, or animal breeding techniques, or some other methods. Their ex situ conservation measures are also being followed for rare and endangered and threatened species. But recently we have introduced cheetah also. Earlier it has become extinct. And for any foreign that is a species from other, lot of permissions Indian government has taken from international organizations like IUCN and other things. Namibia government, even though they have provided some international permissions, have to be taken. Any, we can't to simply transfer like that from one country to other country. It has gone through a lot of legal process for getting one animal from one country to other country and introducing. And this what are the consequences we have to study for if we introduce a new species in a particular area, how it will affect other species, that we need to study. Whether many invasive species have come into India, that is posing a lot of threat to Indian biodiversity. Many weeds have come. We have imported wheat and other from other countries, and we have simultaneously we have imported invasive alien species. They call, I think, IAS, and they are posing threat to local biodiversity. Such things should be and prevented for conserving local biodiversity. And in forest areas also, we have adopted many monoculture methods like eucalyptus, acacia, and other species we have introduced. That is posing threat to local biodiversity, because biodiversity includes all life forms, not monoculture. And these are some of the things, because we are a foresters, you keep in mind to biodiversity includes all life forms. It has to be protected in its natural form only. Not you need not introduce from other areas. Suppose if it is a grassland, you have to preserve it like a grassland only. Not supposed to plant some other tree species. This is the concept of preserving the nature and natural resources. And even many world heritage sites also, they have to be preserved in its natural form, whether natural rock formation, natural um, flora fauna, natural rivers, natural lakes, they have to be preserved in its natural condition only. Artificial interventions cannot be uh, not allowed if it is recognized as a world heritage site. It is preserved for its heritage, not for converting into some artificial things. If it is a natural rock formation, we have to preserve it like that only. If it is a natural desert area, you have to preserve it like a desert only. No intervention should be taken, and local species, whatever is existing, those life forms only should be preserved. Whether it is a grassland or a wetland or any other ecosystem, and whether alpine region or any other region. And then this is the concept of this we have to address properly this invasive alien species. They will because the eupatorium and other things, they are invading all the areas, and prosopis, such things, they, if they spread, they will destroy the local biodiversity, because the regeneration will not come up under this when these weeds are sporadic, they are, if they are spreading. And apart from that, under the convention on biological diversity, we have to reduce pressure on this biological uh, uh, conservation areas, because the biotic pressure is the important threat for biodiversity. This man-made cattle pressure is there in India, and because our most of our forest areas are degraded because of this cattle pressure, because there are no grazing lands. We have how much? 17% of world's cattle population, and we have only 2% of land area. Definitely, but in spite of that, we are preserving our. We have rich biodiversity, but still there should be some appropriate uh, conservation measures we are adopting, and with that intention only, we have created natural parks, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. All these protected areas have been made under Wildlife Protection Act. Sanctuaries have been made, national parks have been made, and we are protecting and preserving conservation of biological diversity only. And but still, we have to recognize forest rights also. We are recognizing the rights of tribals also, because these tribals are integral part of the forest area. They are not separate. And under forest recognition of forest rights act, the tribals are also getting their land pattas nowadays. And uh, and but with certain rules and regulations, they are not supposed to light fire in the forest areas, and they are not supposed to destroy forest. They are not supposed to hunt, and when there is incidents of poaching, they have to inform the forest officers. With all these restrictions, we are issuing pattas to this local tribals wherever they are cultivating podu cultivation or shifting cultivation under Forest Rights Act, recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006. We are issuing pattas. Many state governments, they have issued. That is for a limited period only. But land status will be forest only. But they will have traditional cultivation rights. They can cultivate, and they can survive in that. And 1 to 5 hectares, they are getting land. They are getting inside forest areas under Forest Rights Act. Uh, but these things should be considered in conserving biodiversity, that they should not affect the conservation. At the same time, they should not be uh, denied their rights. Their rights have to be recognized, and biodiversity has to be conserved simultaneously. uh, Apart from recognition of forest rights acts, but locally and NTFP collection and other rights also will be there. Grazing rights will be there. All these things should be managed sustainably. And for that reason, all protected areas like national parks, sanctuaries, this eco-sensitive zone concept has come. Eco-sensitive zone means all protected areas like sanctuaries, national parks, they will have a periphery of 1 to 10 kilometer periphery, that is called as eco-sensitive zone outside the national park or sanctuary. And in eco-sensitive zone, it may fall in private lands also, private agriculture lands, revenue lands also, even though it is not a uh, recognized forest land or sanctuary or forest land. Even the eco-sensitive zone may fall in private areas also outside the sanctuary national park. In eco-sensitive zones also there will be restrictions. All state governments they have notified eco-sensitive zones around sanctuaries and national parks. Some 1 kilometer boundary they have selected as a eco-sensitive zone around. Some state governments 10 kilometers where uh, land is available outside. In states like Goa, where I worked, even there is one sanctuary is just adjacent to Panaji city. There was no boundary at all, eco-sensitive zone. Such things also there. In Kas Brahmananda Reddy National Park is there in Hyderabad. There is no such eco-sensitive zone. But as per Wildlife Protection Act, there should be, as per Supreme Court guidelines also, there should be eco-sensitive zone around the national park or sanctuary. And eco-sensitive zone, what they will do means, even though there is a farmer is there, he can cultivate, but he is not supposed to do any commercial activity. He will not go for, if he want to go for any construction, he need to take permission from forest department. And no sawmill is permitted to establish it in eco-sensitive zone. In eco-sensitive zone, sawmills are not permitted. In eco-sensitive zone also, hunting is not permitted. In eco-sensitive zone, and the cattle has to be vaccinated. And all these things measures should be taken in eco-sensitive zone. And for all, even if they want to construct house also, they have to take permission, even if it is their private land also in eco-sensitive zone. That's why the state governments are hesitating to declare eco-sensitive zone. They are keeping minimum distance from sanctuary national park as eco-sensitive zone. If it falls under eco-sensitive zone, many development activities will not come up, industries will not come, and sawmills cannot establish. Any other industry cannot establish. Even farmer also, if they can't want to construct anything, they have to take permission. Such restrictions will be there in eco-sensitive zone. And apart from that, for protecting marine biodiversity also we have this coastal regulation zones notification rules are also there. And there is coastal zone management authorities have been made, where in coastal zones the construction is not allowed. Coastal zone is 200 to 500-meter area, construction is not allowed. And many coastal zones they are preserved for marine biodiversity conservation. And anything you want to ask anything? Okay. Tell anything if you want to tell anything. Yes. Okay. Uh, these are the main issues of biodiversity conservation. In forest department also many areas, because the habitat is fragmented. The forest department they are taking up many wild animal conflict is there many areas. Man animal conflict, this has to be prevented. Many times the wild animals they are venturing into agriculture lands and other habitations, and it is posing threat to many. The wildlife is being killed by because of man animal conflict. And many areas the railway tracks also passing through sanctuary national park areas and causing casualties to elephant heads and other wildlife animals. And because of this loss of habitat, and because of this fragmentation, this is causing uh, this breeding of the animals also being affected, and that is causing extinction of many species. Many habitations have become fragmented and isolated, and there are no gene mixing. And that is also causing losing, we are losing biodiversity, because in the many habitats they have almost cut off from. And artificially we are making corridors, but many species they could not migrate also. Sometimes they migrate, sometimes because this, some of the animals are they are territorial, they roam in a large territory like a tiger or any leopard. If you want to preserve, it needs a huge territory, not to, you can't confine to a small territory. Even elephants also they are a migratory animals, not to stay at one place. They need a vast area for their, if they stay in one place means whole forest will be vanished in, because such they consume such a large food. They- and it is not advisable. It is a the adaptation mechanism for all animals also. They are migratory animals, because they, if they want to maintain our forest sustainably, they, we should have a large area. Yeah, as you have studied in your forestry, the diversity is related to area of the forest or area of the island. If it is a small island, you will have less diversity. If you have a bigger island, there will be more diversity. It is direct relationship. With this relation, with this formula, you have to maintain. You can tell the species diversity. If I tell the area of your island or forest area, you can tell the number of species also with your formula. You can, that is the farm. Even but if our forest areas are becoming fragmented, then how can you maintain your diversity? You can't maintain in a small area. You can't maintain a large diversity. It is not possible. And she will explain, I think, with our formulas how you can project the diversity of a population with the in relation to area and resource also. Other resources also factors also affect diversity, climatic factors, food, and other natural threats. All these decide the diversity of a ecosystem, because the ecosystems they preserve energy, because sunlight is trapped by plants and it will preserve the energy, and it will be cycled inside the ecosystem, and that animals also required, and the uh, sunlight is trapped and fixed in the ecosystem, the energy is trapped, but if you lose species, then energy will not be trapped, and that means the productivity of an ecosystem is directly related to species diversity. If more diverse species, the productivity is more. If diversity is lost, the productivity of the ecosystem is also lost. Uh, that is the concept of the this entropy or uh, this this laws of thermodynamics also be applicable, equally applicable to your ecosystems. And energy and matter cannot be created or destroyed, and it will transformed into one form to other form. And in ecosystem also it will be like that only, same concept it will apply. And any other issues? Because I'm talking spontaneously, I have not prepared any structured presentation. I think your professors must tell all details. I'm a generalist, I will speak general in general. I Because I'm not a teacher, not a scientist, not a professor. I'm a generalist, I'm a forest officer, and it is my privilege to speak with such a beautiful composition of students from a reputed forest university. And and if you want to tell anything, I will listen.
If anyone wants to ask something, he has a lot of field exposure. Anyone wants to ask something related to his field experience or something, definitely you can. He has worked in
Okay.
many different types of landscapes and different marine territories. His
Okay.
field experience, he can answer you something. If you want to
Okay. Okay, you can interact afterwards also. And I discussed in general, you may be appearing for some competitive exam also, some IAS exam, IFS exam, all these things, international conventions, local laws, biodiversity issues, all things integrated presentation is required. If you want to concentrate on one topic, it is not serve the purpose. No? You should have a broad idea about laws, not only from biologist point of view. It is like a legal point of view, social aspects, all these things you have to consider. That's why I want to talk on a integrated, compiled speech of some all fields, laws, treaties, and international issues and political issues, and legal issues, and this diversity issues. I have generally discussed on uh, in general terms. It is not a structured presentation, but if it is, I think I hope it is useful to you. I think something must have benefited you. I think it is not a waste of time to you. Okay, then that is fine. Good. Okay, thank you very much.